Good afternoon. Welcome to Title Tuesday. Thank you for being here one more time, another Tuesday. No more Taco Tuesday, now Title Tuesday. Get fat on knowledge, no food. And I'm starving. I'm on a juice diet that I'm starving. I want to eat so bad, but let's try to keep this diet. We're going to start in 5 more minutes at 1:05 like every Tuesday. So thank you for being here. I hope you guys went on boat and don't make any comments about anything that has to do with that, because this is not about politics. This is about learning knowledge.
Okay, I'm leaving now. No, I'm kidding.
I was thinking the same thing. You know, it's hard for me to keep my mouth shut sometimes.
Don, please relax.
I'm gonna be good, I promise.
I can only handle one meeting with you, and this is the second one today. So be nice, please.
I feel so privileged to have seen your face twice in one day. Yeah. I feel so happy. Thank you, thank you.
I know. I can see that. I can see that. All right, guys, we're gonna start in 4 minutes, like always, at 1:05. Please keep your device mute.
Okay, I'm gonna mute out. Bye, Jorge.
All right, thank you. Okay, 3 minutes. We're gonna start, guys. 3 minutes. Javier Munoz, Downey Exterminators. You wanna tell us about the termite business, please?
I'm sorry?
Tell us about the termite business.
Well, just like the real estate market is quite busy. We have also stay very busy too. Other than that, it's business as usual. I mean, that's not much termites do at any changes. You know, they've been around for billions of years. So what we do is take care of the problem, and by either fumigating or doing local treatment, and obviously all the termite damage repairs for our clients, and be able to provide it with the clearance so they can close their deal.
All right. Good news. Good news. Any lenders? We have any lenders on the call? We have 2 minutes. 2 minutes for any lenders. No lender? I guess we don't have a lender. So I was on a meeting yesterday, and they were talking about the rates, that they're still gonna stay low. So that's good news. So, and another good news is Pavan is getting married. Anybody can convince the guy not to get married, this is the time. And I'm not talking because Pavan, I'm talking because the girlfriend, she's too nice for that guy. She's way too nice for you, dude.
Stop playing hating George.
Hey, he's gotta find out for himself. We all have
I'm
as many
concerned
times
about her.
as we have.
It's her, it's not him. I feel
so
sorry
I'm
for
the
her.
problem.
Yes, you're the problem.
Oh, wow.
You
Oh,
are
wow.
the
Okay, I'll
problem.
make sure that Marisol is aware of your.
Please.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
anyway, congrats on your marriage. When is your wedding? It's gonna be pretty soon, right?
Yeah, a week from today.
A week from today. So
Hey, congratulations, Pavan.
Hey, thank you very much, Sean.
we're gonna start in 1 more minute. And another thing that you don't know about Pavan is a professional magician. He can do magic tricks. So if you need a pass for the Magic Castle, that's your guy. That's your guy. He can give you a pass for the Magic Castle. It's an amazing place.
George, be careful what you say. He's going to make you disappear.
Well, I hope he can disappear some of my lonjas, because I am fat.
I've been trying to make George disappear, but he still keeps on coming around.
Yes, it will be hard, guys. It'll be hard. 1 more minute. 1:05, we're going to start. 1:05.
Hey, I'm a magician. I can take large sums of cash and turn it into crap.
Actually, that's not a skill. That's called Las Vegas.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons I have that problem.
All right, guys, we're going to start. Tony, please take it away.
Afternoon, everyone. Anthony Zamora with Pacific Coast Title. As always, I'm going to start off with a couple ground rules. All questions are to be entered into the chat, and questions will be asked throughout the presentation on your behalf. Please make sure your device is muted always. If your question is not asked or answered, you will be given the speaker's contact info so you can contact them directly. Thank you to all our PCT reps from Los Angeles, the Inland Empire, Oxnard, Ventura, Orange, and San Diego for inviting your clients and being a part of our Title Tuesday. Anyone who would like a recorded copy of this seminar, please enter into the chat the following: your name, email, phone number, and the PCT rep in which you work with. Lastly, please look out for next week's Title Tuesday via social media and/or email. Topics will include title tips and why is it important to know my tax situation by the end of the year, top 5 tax write-offs, deductible of mortgage interest and how much does it really save? Why isn't my medical deductible? Do I have to make estimated tax payments? The effects of the IRS layoffs during COVID and the change in the tax code for 2020. So it's going to be a very impactful webinar. Please bring something to write with, and you will get a lot of knowledge next week, just like you will today. With that said, I'd like to introduce Felicia with Pacific Coast Title, who's going to go ahead and introduce our guest speaker for today.
Hi, everybody. So I'd love to introduce Pavan Madi. He is currently president of the PM Real Estate Service, Inc., a real estate advisory firm holding both real estate brokerage and general contract license. He is also the commercial director, finance and development chair for Keller Williams Downey office. He recently launched a real estate training program teaching real estate professionals on how to underwrite both residential and commercial properties. This includes, but not limited to, preparing financial statements, pro forma, analysts, lease analysts, and risk assessment as they relate to each type of asset class. So without further ado, Pavan, please take it away.
Thank you very much, Felicia, George, Anthony. Thank you for having me, like always. Although we joke around on how much we've been trying to make each other disappear, we always enjoy our discussions and taking stabs at each other whenever we can. In saying that, you know, I'm pretty sure some of you already know me, and the ones that don't, you know, I come from an accounting background. So my initial trade is accounting. So numbers are one of those things that I really make sure that I detail out. In commercial real estate, you know, it's important to note that, you know, finance is probably a big component that we as real estate professionals have to know. And, you know, with single family homes, they're pretty easy to work with. You know, you can analyze a property in about 30 minutes. On commercial real estate, there's a lot of things that you have to dive into to truly understand what you're presenting to yourself as an investor or to your client. So in saying that, am I okay to share a screen?
Yeah, are you allowed to?
Oh, I just wanted to make sure I can. Yeah, I can. Let me move this. Not that one. Okay, that's giving me slideshow. I love it. Okay, well, I'm trying to make sure the slideshow shows up, but that's, I think.
I can see it.
So, you know, I always tell people, you know, knowledge is a very powerful tool. And I go off with a quote, chance favors the prepared mind. I use this quote all the time. And the reason being, because the more knowledgeable you are in any type of asset class, it doesn't matter if it's industrial, multifamily, residential, you know, that in itself will give you the tools to be very successful. Because not only can you underwrite the deal, but you could also articulate that information to your client, so they feel a lot more safe in working with you because you're looking out for their best interests. Well, of course, Felicia, thank you very much for the great intro. I'll get out of that state. So we have different type of commercial assets. We have What we call the gateway asset is the multifamily sector. Now, keep in mind, anything above 5 units or more is still considered a commercial asset from a lending perspective. You know, although it's a residential product, it's still considered from an investment standpoint, it's going to always be a commercial asset. And then we have retail, office, hotels, industrial, special purpose. Special purpose can be churches or, you know, hospitals. It could be a lot of different things. Like if it was a manufacturing plant for Apple or Intel chips, it's an industrial product, but it's for a special purpose. We have mixed use. We've been seeing a lot of those types of projects coming about, where you have retail or commercial in the on the ground level, and then you have multifamily above. And land development. Now, I always keep land development as last because it's probably the most complex type of real estate asset that you could work on. Now, this class is about about financial mechanics, but for you to be successful in understanding the financial mechanics of a deal, you need to understand how to underwrite the deal. You know, I always tell people, you know, when I teach my my full program, I always tell people, you know, this is like an intro class. You have 3 elements in a property. Basically, you're compiling property data, analyzing a market, and financial analysis. Now, you need these 2, property information and market analysis, before you could analyze any properties. The more assumptions are qualified, the more clearer your financial analysis will become. And then I basically teach people how to put together a pitch deck so you could actually create a pitch in 60 seconds or less and present it to your clients. A lot of times you have your Q&A with your clients, so you know all of the research you've done, you should be able to have it at your fingertips. I'm not going to get into the other 2 today, but you know, the first thing I always tell people, you need to understand how to do what they call the back of the envelope calculation. BOE is simply a rough calculation to qualify a property, right? You know, I usually use it to say, hey, is it worth pursuing? Is it overpriced? Or do I need more data, right? And you should be able to do this on your calculator, on the fly, within literally 30 seconds. I could probably, you know, as many times as I've done it, I could probably do it in about 10 seconds or so. But within the first 60 seconds, you should know. Now, basically, if you're looking at a multifamily as an example, you have your income, you have your vacancy, you have your operating income, you have your expenses, and you have what they call a net operating income. And then you have a valuation table, typically, which is called a capitalization table. And I'll go into it a little bit more in just a moment. And this is something I promise, if you learn this BOE, you will do so much, you'll make so much headway with investors. The property data, I'm not going to get into this right now. Market analysis, I'm not going to get into this. You know, the financial analysis, right? The first thing you need to understand the basic terminology, you know? And I'm going to show you one of my, some of the terminologies in just a second. From there, from all the data that you collected from the other 2, you need to prepare what they call a profit and loss statement with a pro forma analysis within a 5-year, 10-year, 5 to 10 years is the range that you want to have this this information. Now, one thing I always tell people, there's operational expenses and non-operational expenses, and which I'll actually show you a sample of this profit and loss statement, and that way I can share with you. You know, financial calculations, I'll also go through it, go with that. So one thing about lender's analysis, you know, you have your lender will tell you, hey, you know, there's 2 aspects to a commercial loan. They'll give you maximum LTV, but they say condition that it meets a certain debt coverage ratio. They'll lend you the less of the 2. So if they sell you by LTV, I can lend you up to $1 million, but the debt services they'll only lend you up to 700. They'll go with the 700, not the $1 million. Okay, so be careful when you ask lenders like, hey, I'm buying this commercial I'm helping my client buy a commercial property. Can you give me some loan parameters? When they give you this, just be careful and take it with a grain of salt. You know, investment return calculations, there's, you know, levered and unlevered. Levered basically means that you're getting a loan. Unlevered means that you're actually paying all cash for the property. there's two types of ratios, the return ratios that you need to be careful about. You have the ROI and the internal rate of return. ROI does not take into consideration time value of money, right? Meaning that if you buy it and sell it in less than 6 months, you have an ROI. But if you get the same ROI buying and selling it after 5 years, that's a poor assessment of an ROI. So what a lot of investors do is what they call an internal rate of return, which takes into consideration time value of money. Now, in going through that, I'm going to actually go. How do I get rid of this? There you go. I'm going to walk you through some of the terminology. If you want to get into commercial real estate, these are all the terminology that you really, really need to understand. And not only do you need to understand it, you need to be able to articulate it to an investor. And you need to be able to incorporate it into your financial worksheets so that way you could quickly share and talk about it, And keep in mind, it has to be very conversational. If you look at it from a perspective of reading a script, I'm going to tell you this: investors, you're gonna lose them because they have a very short fuse and very short attention span. Just for the show of hands, well, I'm not sure if you guys can talk, but can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to just walk through them real quick. A GRM is basically a rent multiplier. We got to be careful because when you start seeing a rent multiplier, basically, if you're making $100,000 in revenue, that means rents collected. You multiply that by a certain number. Let's just say GRM is 10, so it's 10 times 100,000. That's the value that you're saying. I have realtors send me projects and they said, hey, the GRM is 20. I'm like, oof, that's actually really bad. I wouldn't want to buy a property with a GRM of 20. So you need to understand how to research the market data within a local area and see what that is. Cap rates, this is a key element because it takes into consideration all your expenses. Now, a cap rate, if you're paying all cash, remember, that's the rate of your return on the purchase, right? But if you're levering, it's basically, cap rates are not a good sense of your rate of return. As mentioned, GSI is basically gross scheduled rents. Vacancy, you're actually subtracting that from your GSI. And I'm going to walk through this on a spreadsheet in a little bit. I could actually send all of these elements so that way you guys can research them a little bit later, because I don't want to sit there and give you definitions of each and every one of them, because I'm going to bore you guys to death. Because a lot of the commercial real estate is pretty dry, Let's get into the financial worksheet real quick. I tell people, look, if you don't know how to put it together on a financial worksheet, you need to learn it. You also need to learn Excel. Reason being because everything is about numbers. When you could articulate this information and you could do it in such a clean and efficient way, investors will give you that respect enough to say that, hey, I think he knows what he's talking about. Let me see what he could do for me. I have a lot of investors, literally, they have other agents representing them, but they call me and helping me, asking me to help analyze a deal as a third party. Sean, do you have a question?
Yeah, what are we supposed to be looking at a different screen? Right now, the only thing I see in front of me is the pitch decks.
Oh, really? Okay, let me.
Is there anybody else out there that's seeing the same thing?
Okay, let me go ahead and, so you didn't even see the definitions?
No, I didn't see any of that. The only thing I saw was pitch deck.
I apologize. I was actually going through the glossary too, but that's fine. I'll get you guys some information about the glossary. Let me go here. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Yes, I can see multifamily investment template.
Okay, perfect. Now, every one of my spreadsheets are tie-ins. Who knows how to use Excel? Sure. Okay. How well do you know, Sean?
I used to train Excel years ago.
Okay, so typical information that you need on any commercial property are rent rolls, your assumptions, as well as your profit and loss. If it's a pro forma, that's fine, right? So now I normally incorporate all of this into one page because I want to make it easier on me, and I also want to be able to walk through the spreadsheet to my investors. So the first thing I do, this is a multifamily property. That's the 10-unit building. So 10 units, their rents, their square footage, the bedroom, bath count, and so on and so on. Right here, I have my assumptions that I'm going to use for my profit and loss statements and key factors. What the purchase price is, how much down payment I'm going to have, what the interest rate terms, and so on and so on. My debt services, my GRM, my expense ratios are important. Now, if you notice that I have things in yellow, now this is an internal document that all my team actually has a capacity to use, because I want these spreadsheets I want my team to quickly enter the data, and the entire spreadsheet is automatically calculated for you. So you could actually walk through this and any investment property and say, okay, let me put this data in 5 minutes and let me see what it shoots out. And then it gives you a baseline of what you can do. Now, one thing to note, I have 2 sheets right here. Can you guys see it? Loan schedule.
Yes.
Okay, so this loan schedule, have you guys ever done an amortization schedule?
Yes.
Okay, so it doesn't matter if you're in residential real estate or commercial real estate. You better know how to do this, because I use this even on my residential clients to show them how they're going to benefit from taxation purposes as well as the investment growth. Okay, those are going to be 2 key elements that you need to understand. And basically, I'm actually going to be teaching a class about how to put this together so that way you know how to do it. Look, guys, I will never give you an app or any tool that you could quickly do. I do longhand. I teach you how everything works so that way you can actually do it yourself and you never have to worry about, oh shoot, how do I figure it out? It's important as a real estate professionals, we know the inner workings of things. And this is actually incorporated into my income statement, right? So let me just go over my income statement real quick. Do you guys see the profit and loss? So when you do investments, you remember you have to do a projection for a number of years, right? So you have your income, your vacancy factor in multifamily is about 5%. Other types of asset is different. So you have to do a little bit of research on that. You have your taxes, insurance, property management, utilities, and reserve for repairs. Now, keep in mind, this is all the rough ideas, right? This is just a pro forma. Lenders probably will not take reserve for repairs and concessions because they don't need it to see what you qualify for. But as an investor, you better put that in now, because if you don't and take that into consideration, what's going to end up happening is you will have this you'll have a property that had so much deferred maintenance, and you're dishing out money every month, every quarter, every year, and you're losing money. So you need to make sure that the property is going to cash flow. Now this so I mentioned something about operational expenses and non-operational expenses, right? Your direct operational expenses are simply these: your taxes, insurance, property management, utilities, any repairs and things like that, right? That's your operating expenses. That gives you what they call a net operating income, which is important. Anybody that's been in real estate for a long time, they'll tell you, you need that information for you to understand, hey, am I going to be profitable? The second element is operating expenses, right? So you have your debt services, which is your interest and principal payment. I incorporate this as a separate line item because I want to know what's going on, right? And I incorporate.
Iván?
Yes.
Do you base the reserve for repairs based on the years of the property? Or do you just base it on maybe an assumption based on prior rental history?
You can do it multiple ways. Your reserve for repairs. One of the other classes that I have is property data assessment. You're conducting your due diligence, right? And you could really figure out what the condition of the property is, if there was a lot of deferred maintenance and things like that to make that assessment. On this, I just put 5%. You might want to put 10% or 12%. It really comes down to the asset. That's why it's important to conduct your due diligence on the property level for you to prepare these assumptions, right? Financial documents, they're as good as your assumptions. If you're just throwing numbers together, I'll be honest with you, you're not going to be able to qualify the property. Not to an investor. They know this stuff, right? Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. So going to this non-operational expenses, right? You have your interest, your depreciation, your taxable income, and have your principal reduction. Now, the reason I laid out the groundwork this way is because your interest is the only one that you can expense out, right? On your for tax purposes. You get a depreciation credit because it's a tax deduction. So you have your taxable income. Any CPA that sees this, he was all like, okay, I like how this laid out. I could actually make my assessment and put all the data into the tax forms to give you that. Now, you have your principal reduction that you also have to take into consideration. And then you have your cash flow. Your cash flow does not take into consideration your depreciation, but everything, your net operating income after expenses, your interest payment, your principal reduction. This is the cash flow that you're going to have. It's actually doing well, right? And you notice that when I did the loan schedule, I incorporated the loan balances at the year end. So year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, right? Because I want to know what my balance is going to be after a certain period of time. Typically, if you have a bookkeeper that's doing this, it would show on your balance sheet. But in this case, it'll be good for you to have, right? This is your cash on cash return, ROI, based on your investment capital, how much you put down. You know, so you notice that every year you're actually growing. After a certain amount of time, you actually do well. Some investors use commercial real estate as a tax strategy, meaning that they don't mind having a negative cash flow, and they don't mind having the depreciation as an additional tax deductible item. I know investors that make almost $500,000 to $1 million in cash flow, but they pay taxes like they're only making $100 grand. Real estate is by far the biggest hedge against tax liability. 90% of all millionaires become millionaires because of real estate.
Hey, Bhavin, I have a question for you, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
On your Excel spreadsheet, cell L19, interest payment. Yeah. Why did the payment drop to 34,000?
Oh, this is by unit because it's a 10 unit. So I just want to show you some month per year per unit. And then I got year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Keep in mind, investors want to know what's their cost per unit, cost per month, all that element, right? So I put that, I incorporate all of this into my spreadsheet. Keep in mind, I'll give you an example. Well, actually, let me go through the spreadsheet real quick. So you have your cash on cash return right here, based on your down payment. Okay, this part, people get confused on this. I use what they call a cap table. Now, typically, you know, people say, well, the properties are selling at a 4% cap. You know, okay, great. Now, I don't necessarily like to say that because I like to give an idea of what the value would be based on our assessment based on different cap rates. Remember, as interest rates grow, so does the capitalization. It actually follows, meaning that today the interest rates are 3%, 4%, 4.5%, right? For commercial real, especially commercial real estate. Now, it's not always going to be like that. You know, because interest rates are low, we're seeing a huge appreciation on commercial real estate value because it's compressing the cap rate. It's all artificial. If anybody tells you that, you know, the commercial market is booming, well, forget about the pandemic for a second. Be careful, because it's booming just because the Feds lowered the interest rates a lot. Why do you think residential real estate is booming? It's because of monetary policies. It's not because market is doing extremely well. People have a larger purchasing power. That's all it is. So be careful, because as soon as the interest rates grow, it's going to be an issue. I'll give you an example. Let's just say today's value on this property is trading at 4 cap. that leaves it at $4.8 million. Let's just say 3 years, 4 years down the line, the interest rate grew to like 6% for commercial real estate. You're not going to be able to sell it at a 4 cap. Let's just say 5 years down the line, you're forced to sell it at a 5, like a 5.5 cap. You bought it at 4.8, but now you're forced to sell at 4.3, 4.4. So you want to be able to see how the market is going to fluctuate, and you as an investor can assess, okay, what's the degree of risk on this property? You know, and that's why I always tell people that I will always do a cap table, because it gives me a bigger picture on the risk tolerance for each investor. What you might buy a property at $4.8 million, I probably won't. I probably want to buy it at 4.75 or 5% cap rate, you know? So having these numbers readily available is going to be really, really important. Does that make sense? So now, remember I told you, these spreadsheets that I help design, they're inner working. Everything in yellow is something that you just have to change, and it'll automatically calculate. So for example, let's just say, for the sake of argument, you have you do a 20 unit. You have 10 more units that are a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. That's about 900 square feet, and they're generating another 2,400. It should automatically calculate on your behalf. Everything is calculated. You notice how it jumps in value right here. You know, so you got to be, so you want to make it as easy as possible for you and your client. Now, when you put together these spreadsheets, I recommend don't share it with every investor. Print it as a PDF and send it to them, because you spend so much time putting this together, and do you really want them to just have a spreadsheet of your hard work, you know, for them to have? No, because they don't need you anymore. They're like, well, I can assess my own properties. Then I'm going to start negotiating commissions with you and all those elements. The value proposition that you could give, you as a realtor can give to an investor, is being as resourceful as possible, you know, and being able to articulate this information. I guarantee you, just because you know how to put the spreadsheet together, you need to understand what each one of these assumptions stand for and why you use those assumptions. One of the things that previously, you know, they talked about, why did I use a 5% repair reserve for repairs? I used it because I did my research on the property. I understood the past history of the property. So I made that assumption based on qualitative elements, not just simply an arbitrary number. Does that make sense? Does anybody want to take a class on creating an amortization schedule?
Yes.
Okay, if you guys can send an email to George or myself, we'll put a quick class. And here's the thing, guys, you guys need Excel, and I will walk you through every step of the way on why you're using something and what it means. Not just simply, you know, a tool that you use an app for, because you want to be able to do a lot more than just saying, hey, your monthly payments are $4,000. Okay, what happens after 2 years, 3 years? You know, those are things that you want to be able to address to your client. You know, prime example, you know, we create a 7-year plan for investors, right? So one of the things I say, look, you buy this property year 1, year 5, let's just say everything is constant, you buy it at $4.8 million. Year 5, if everything goes the same, it'll be worth $6 million.
The bank has closed.
I think somebody's talking.
I muted her. Yeah.
All right, okay, thank you. So at this point, you could actually, here's a kicker. Investors buy commercial real estate properties for long-term because they buy one property and see the gradual increase in value, refi, take cash out and buy a second property, and then a third property, and then it becomes 5 properties, and then it becomes 10. You know, some of the investors that we worked with, we already got them like 10 properties already, you know, in the last 15 years. You know, their cash flow is exceeding 7 figures already. You know, and literally they're paying taxes like they're making less than a few $100,000. You know, how do they do it? Is you have to understand the mechanics of finance, from taxation, from lending, as well as being able to put all of these together into a concise format. In saying that, well, let me not bore you guys to death. I know Excel can be very boring, but I hope this gives you a baseline of what you need to put together for your investor. In the process, I guess I'll give it to George, the rest of the Pacific Coast Title team, and if there's any questions I could answer.
I think anybody have any questions? I think there was a question from Abraham, and let me go ahead and get there. I think you may have covered it, but just in case he didn't hear it, how do you determine the depreciation of a property and/or units? Does it differ in different areas?
Depreciation there's 2 types of depreciation. For 1 to 4 unit is 27.5 years. 5 units or more, and any type of commercial asset is 39 years. So at the bottom right here, I put a depreciation schedule, basically 39 years because it's 5 units or more. I want one caveat. If you buy a property at 5 million, you can only depreciate the improvement. Land cannot be depreciated. So in California, it's typical 70 to 80% of the purchase price is what is considered the improvement value. So I use that 70% mark. My yearly depreciation schedule is $62,000, which I incorporate right here, 62,000 all the way across.
Perfect, thank you. Any questions from anybody else? I think that was the only one. You did such a fantastic job, Pavan. Jorge, would you like to add anything?
Oh, that was easy. I thought you guys were going to give me some tough questions.
Okay, let me ask a question. Commercial real estate, what's going to happen next year?
Oof. Okay, so my take on commercial real estate next year, it's going to be a perfect storm, meaning that residential is going to be, I think we'll see a slight correction, but not that, it's not even going to be bad. Commercial, depending on the type of asset. Hospitality, retail. In LA, for example, there's abundance of retail properties. In my opinion, there's too much. So I've been noticing municipal code being modified to allow these retail commercial properties to be repositioned into multifamily developments. So we're going to see a lot of changes. Now, if you want to really get into commercial real estate, I really recommend that you understand all the fundamentals of the industry. 2, set yourself up so you can actually target a certain type of clientele. People that own properties 20 years ago, they're not going to be hurting as much, but people that bought commercial real estate in the last, let's just say 4 years, there's an opportunity for you to go after them. George, Anthony, the rest of the PCT team can actually help you form an area and target properties that were that only changed hands in the last 3 to 4 years. Now,
if I'm a brand new realtor, I'm not a brand new realtor. If I'm brand new on commercial, but I want to target commercial, I want to start with commercial. What kind of farming you recommend? That's it, guys that they own 5 to 10 units the last 5 years, or what's the max should I go? Because if I'm gonna start investing in real estate, I don't start with 100 units, right? Usually
I wouldn't recommend it because it's just more work. Here's the thing, you know, if you're a brand new agent or a residential agent getting into commercial, try to get into something that's like anywhere from 5 to 10 units, and then build up to it, because you'll understand the system, and then you could scale up real easy. Remember, after you know everything, it doesn't matter if it's a 10 unit or 200 unit. Analysis on those properties are going to be the same, but it's just going to be a lot more work, right? It's going to be the same type of work, just a lot more of it. So my recommendation is start off with the multifamily that's anywhere from 5 to 10 units. I think you'll do well.
Alicia, there's a question from Jose Garcia Yanez. Can you read it, please?
Properties seem to be high with ROI lower than 3%, and they are still selling. Do you see a change on this, where investors would be able to see 6% or higher return? Do you think that the commercial retail office would go down post-COVID? What differences can you talk about between multi-unit versus retail office?
Okay. Well, those were a lot of questions. Can you
Sorry.
give me the first question one more time?
Okay. Properties seem to be high with ROI lower than 3%, and they are still selling. Do you see a change on this? That's one.
Yes. Okay. So I assume when you say ROI, you're saying 3% cap rate. You know, capitalization rate, right, is what properties are trading at. That's this right here, right? My take, I wouldn't put any of my investors at 3%. You know who's buying them? People that are doing 1031 exchanges because they need to move their money. You know, those are the ones that you will probably, you could probably convince them to buy a 3 cap property. You know, an investor that has cash liquid, I guarantee you, if they buy a 3 cap property, they're being advised incorrectly. That's just my take, you know, because we get presented with deals all the time, and I'm going to be honest with you, I would never touch them. What's the next question?
Okay. Do you see a change? Okay, no. Where investors would be able to see 6% or higher return? That was part of the question.
You will start seeing that next year, you know, because we're going to start. Remember, real estate is slow at adjusting to the market, right? It's not like the stock market when there's bad news and it crashes, and there's good news and it goes back up. Real estate, it takes time. When COVID happened, it's going to probably take about a year or two before you start seeing more properties come into the marketplace, which will at a lower price with a higher return on investment. Prime example. I'll use the residential market as an example real quick. In 2005, when I used to work for the U.S. Department of Housing, REO, we were already starting to see signs of a market shift. But the feds, the fiscal policies and everything were propping up the market. And at a point, it became a house of cards. It just crumbled. But it took 2 to 3 years for that to happen. COVID is a little bit more extreme. So we're going to see a huge shift in properties that are going to lose value, because I know commercial businessmen that are downsizing their offices. I know a president of a lending group that's cutting their office size by half. There's going to be immense amount of office space and retail that are going to be vacant, and some owners, landlords, they can't weather the storm. They just need to sell. You know, you're going to see that, and believe it or not, we're waiting for it. There's a lot of investors that I talk to, they're waiting for it, and they're going to take advantage of it.
Okay, and the second part is, do you think that commercial retail office would go down post-COVID?
Yes,
Okay,
for all the reasons I just stated. You know,
okay.
you just need to know what to look for on a deal. Jorge, Felicia, you can answer this too. When you guys form data for your agents, you could give loan data too, right? When the loan was established.
Yes.
Bobby can.
Okay, guys, that's going to be the key element. You know, one thing to know, I mentioned that, you know, be careful on properties that were owned for 20 years. But even if it was owned for 20 years, but they just got a loan 2 years ago, they maxed out on their loan, and the COVID hit. You know, they just say they refi, took as much money out and bought a second property or a third property. Those guys need to sell because they're not going to be able to weather the storm. Now, you need to hear them out too. And what I mean by that, there's two types of investors. There's those passive investors that are using the income that's being made on these commercial assets to live off. There's those professional investors that are already doctors, lawyers, engineers that don't need this capital to survive. They could weather the storm. In actuality, they could actually pay the mortgage without even flinching, even if it's vacant, the entire property. So you need to understand what that client does, because it either reduces their risk or increases their risk. Look out for those people that are depending on living off that cash flow.
Okay, I also have another question from Melinda Smith. I am thinking of buying a NNN property like a Jiffy Lube. How do I look at ROI on that?
So Jiffy Lube is what they call an accredited tenant. It's actually good to buy that, you know, because they're not going to just get up and leave, you know. And it's because of the pandemic, it's also considered an essential business, right? So when you look at the ROI, look at it from a risk perspective, right? Two, I want you to I need to have a better understanding. Are you buying the Jiffy Lube, the business, or are you buying the real estate, the underlying real estate that Jiffy Lube is leasing? I'm assuming if you're saying triple net, that it's leasing, right? As long as you're making a good return for 5% cap, let's just say 5% on those types of operation would be a good number to work with. I think it's a good investment, you know. And keep in mind, it's triple net, so they're paying taxes and insurance. Caveat: taxes, be careful, because we'll know later today, tomorrow, if the split roll is going to pass. You guys know about the split roll, right?
No.
Okay, so basically there's a proposition, an amendment to Prop 13 right now on the table that will split the property roll into two parts: residential properties, 1 to 4 units, and commercial properties that are greater than $3 million worth, right? Everything that's worth that the assessor assesses that is more than 3 million, they're going to go to market taxes. They're no longer going to have the protection of Prop 13. What does that mean for triple net? Because taxes being paid by the tenant is going to drastically increase the tenant's monthly payment, right? Now, we've been negotiating deals with what they call a tax stop. That's part of the lease agreement that you negotiate on behalf of the tenant. And most likely, if Jiffy Lube is coming on, is an accredited tenant, you got to make sure that they don't have that in their contract. You know, if they do, what's going to end up happening is your 5% cap will probably turn to a 3% cap. So you want to make sure that you have you know how to analyze the lease agreement itself to see where it's at.
Okay.
Can I note something about that? If the split roll passes, guys, you have it's really it's gonna create a ripple effect. With COVID, in addition to the split roll, people need to sell. They can't afford to keep it. And there's going to be deals to be made. A hell of a lot of deals.
Wow. Perfect. I think that's it. Jorge?
That's it. All right, guys. Well, I want to thank you for being here. I need to talk about title for like 1 minute, 60 seconds. Make sure that you contact your title rep from Pacific Coast Title so we can do one-on-one trainings on farming, how to farm. That's key. We're doing it. We start with some of the clients that we have. So if you need a one-on-one, just contact your title rep and we can sit and tailor your area. Make sure what kind of farming you're gonna need, what you're gonna get. So every area is completely different. So make sure that you contact your Pacific Coast Title rep so we can do a one-on-one consultation. Pavan, I want to thank you. Thank you so much. I wish you a lot of luck next week on your wedding.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
I feel sorry for her, but it is what it is. And,
did you just say you feel sorry for her?
yes. That's what
Oh my God.
And
congratulations,
Pavan. we have a YouTube channel now open. I put it on the chat. We have every single recording for Title Tuesday. All the past trainings are gonna be there. The only one that we don't have is last week because the speaker didn't allow us to record that. He's gonna be back to do the disclosures. So it's a great speaker. We're very lucky. We have always great speakers. Thank you, Pavan. You were great. You want to give your information in case somebody wants to do a one-on-one consultation, because I know you would love to do that for us, right?
Yeah, for you, George, anytime, man. Anytime. It's just I'll be MIA for 2 weeks. Hope you guys understand.
What's your information?
I'm actually putting it on the group chat. Thank you very much, guys, for giving me this opportunity. And two, those that want to learn how to use Excel for preparing and financial modeling, let me know and let Jorge, any one of your title reps from PCT know. They know how to get a hold of me, and I'll make sure that I teach you guys as much as I can.
All right, guys. So if there's nothing else, thank you for being here. Next week we have a good speaker. It's a surprise. I'm gonna send that information to the reps tomorrow. So make sure that you check your email, your text for the next speaker. It's gonna be a great one. It's a big surprise for you guys.
George, can I, Jorge? I call you George and Jorge. I kind of go back and forth. I apologize.
Don't worry.
I did have one request, and hopefully, maybe 2 or 3 of you guys can share. What was one takeaway that you got from this from this session?
Sean, I know you like to talk. Go ahead, please. Don't let me down.
I'm here. It was a lot of good information. It's a little tough to really handle a big Excel spreadsheet because you got a lot of formulas in there and things are going everywhere. When you're first getting into commercial, and I've been looking into it as well as probably a lot of agents here, is trying to get all that information and understanding where you can get all that information. So I really enjoyed your presentation. Thank you so much. And good luck on the wedding. I'm gonna say good luck on the wedding. I'm sure you're gonna do great.
Per Jorge, he feels sorry for my fiance Marisol, but I don't know. I think I feel sorry for myself now thinking about it. But one thing I want to make sure, Sean, and everybody else in it. Look, I'll teach you how to put together the spreadsheet. I will never share a template because that doesn't help you guys. All it does is you're gonna, if something happens, you won't know how to adjust and make things happen. You need to learn the long way now so you don't have to worry about it.
Understand. What I liked about the session was all this while I've been using single spreadsheets because I'm an accountant with a very strong tax background. It doesn't seem so complicated for me. But what I took away from your session is the multiple units that you pieced together, and also the whole idea has been boggling in my mind on how to reserve on the repairs. So, and also your spreadsheet looked very simple and straightforward for me, maybe because I have that background, but I want to say thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much.
Appreciate that.
I'm glad you enjoyed it because I try to keep it as simple as possible, but sometimes there's so much noise. It's tough.
Thank you.
Did great, yeah.
All right, guys, one more time, thank you so much for being here. Title Tuesday is be back. It's gonna be back next Tuesday. So there's nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
guys.
Bobbin, good luck. Good luck. Don't run too far.
Hey,
Thanks,
Sean,
everybody.
Sean, you know he was gonna propose in Spain when I was there. We have it all set up for dinner, special dinner, and guess what? COVID-19 killed it.
Just make sure you're keeping that that Uber app on your phone in case you need to split, you know?
Well, I mean, and based on what Jorge said, I think I still got a lot of brownie points from the trip because instead of doing it in Spain, doing the special dinner and everything, I was able to propose in front of the Eiffel Tower. So,
Wow. Wow. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I tell this story many times, but you know, to all the guys out there, do brownie points expire? Because I was told they do now.
They do.
You just have to remember that your wife has a long memory, and if you do something wrong now, remember she's probably going to hear about it later. I've been married 25 years, and I've been very lucky. I got a great girl. I'm sure you're going to do just fine. Just take a deep breath and enjoy yourself. Everybody's worried about the wedding. You never get a chance to enjoy it. I mean,
believe it or not, honestly, you make a good point.
too many
I think
times.
she's the right one for me. I think we balance each other out. Although she takes stabs at me and I take stabs back, that's what makes it a healthy relationship.
Perfect.
You have to be friends.
Yes.
Guys, I would love to continue talking about marriage and all that, but as you guys know, I am the expert on divorces. I only have 4 divorces, so see you next week.
This one's a charm. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, Pavan.
Bye, Javi.